You're posting in all the right spots. You're on Twitter, you're on Reddit, you might even be on YouTube. But what if the most powerful business platform for an indie devs is the one that you are ignoring? Well, my friend, this week's episode aims to uncover the unique power of LinkedIn for building your studio, securing deals, and attracting talent. My guest this week is John Hansen, founder of Skilltree Marketing and one of the top voices in the gaming industry on LinkedIn.
It just depends on the type of game that you have, because every game has a different type of player, and that type of player usually lives in different places.
Now, John went from being a relatively unknown to the top 1% in just 3 months. And John is here to share the exact strategy that he used to achieve this massive organic success, and how you can apply the same methodology to your game's marketing. You'll learn how to treat LinkedIn like a B2B platform for publishers and investor relationships, the importance of personalizing messages over sending cold reach outs, and why low-performing posts should never be seen as a failure, but instead as a data point. Welcome to Freaking Cool Indies. John, welcome to Freaking Cool Indies. First off, once again, thank you very much for taking time out of your day to talk to myself, talk to the audience all about LinkedIn. You have received a great deal of success over the last few months, and it's been awesome to watch with LinkedIn. So I wanted to hear from you a little bit more about how indie devs can utilize the platform, because, you know, typically they're thinking Twitter, they're thinking Blue Sky, they're thinking Reddit are, hey, that's the only places I need to be or the only places I want to be. But I really am a firm believer that LinkedIn has its own place in this indie dev environment, if you will. So I wanted to pass in first question to you is if you want to share a little bit about your own story. Like, how did you hit that like aha moment and realize that LinkedIn actually has some pretty unique power when it comes to the gaming industry?
Yeah, so it all started when I wanted to make this business. I had looked out in the job market. I felt like it was time to move on from WB, but the job market, there's very few marketing roles, especially remote roles. I don't want to relocate in the game industry. And so like competition's fierce. So I thought about what are like the other alternatives? You know, I could go to other industries. It didn't really excite me. And I thought, well, what about starting my own business? And so I did a lot of research and realized that in the indie space, well, there's a whole lot of games and not a whole lot of marketing support. So to me, that was opportunity. And as I was a WB, I wanted to grow and validate the business while I still had a salary, just to make sure that I wasn't crazy, right? The research told me this makes sense, but until I started going out in the real world, you know, how true is that going to be? So put together a strategy, much like we put together a strategy for a game, a go-to-market strategy, if you will. And I had to be very careful to not draw the eye of Soren from WB, to work on my job while I was getting clients. So with the research, I found, okay, well, first of all, I had to identify, like, you know, what's the problem that I'm trying to solve? Problem is, well, there's a lot of games, they need marketing support, they can't afford big agencies, you know, publishers in question mark, hard to get publishing deals. Even if you get them, how effective are they going to be from like a marketing perspective? And like finding like the commonalities and like what those problems were and what indie devs like faced. It's like it's just a fractured marketplace. They think that it's out of reach, out of budget to get marketing support. They don't know how to measure it. They don't know what to do around strategy. So in order to get clients, I came up with this thought leadership plan of like, okay, well, there's nothing wrong with me posting, you know, on LinkedIn, building my own personal brand. I checked with my boss at WB. I'm like, can I be active on LinkedIn? Of course, sure. Here's a social media policy. Make sure you stay with that. Great. Cool. And I also found like Reddit and Discord were other channels that indies were in, indie developers, indie studios. And instead of me overtly saying, hey, I have a side business, like come work with me, I had to think through a way to draw people to me through thought leadership. And so that's what I did. And I started back in March and came up with different content ideas of, you know, what would get interest and, you know, slowly started to gain traction, but not much. I mean, each post had a few hundred posts or impressions, if you will. but I kept testing, optimizing what worked, what wouldn't work. And I found these case studies that were highlighting indies or AA studios, in the case of Expedition, that had smaller teams that went on to get a lot of success. And, there's this misconception in the indie community. Some folks feel, well, if I just make a great game, then that's all I need to do, right? And then they point to games like Balatro or Expedition, and they say, well, they didn't have marketing, right? They just made a great game and it sold millions of copies, right? No. They all need marketing support. So just shining a light on that kind of demystified some of it for people on LinkedIn. I'm like, oh, like here's what Balatro did, right? This is all publicly available information. The marketing manager spoke at GDC and told everyone exactly what the plan was, right? It's all available information, but like highlighting it regularly on LinkedIn really drew a lot of attention of like, oh, here's what there actually was a marketing plan and strategy, and here's what they did, right? So doing that, measuring the data, seeing what worked, what didn't, and then doubling down on the content that did work, was what helped drive success. And the same is true for indies if they're trying to build their own community, is coming up with a core message that they want, identifying like any market gaps. So I'm making a game that there's a lot of demand for, but there's not a whole lot of games to meet that demand. So how do I message it? How do I go to the right space? Like, where are the communities living? And how can I build an audience? Well, same strategy applies there. Is come up with that theory, come up with the strategy, find messaging you think will work, but it's all subjective, and test it and see what works, what doesn't. If it's working, double down on it. If it's not working, try something else.
Yeah.
Testing, measuring, optimizing, it's marketing loop.
And how long are you sticking with a certain type of content before I'm going to pivot and see if this next one works, or are you doing type A, type B, type C all together and then seeing, okay, now I can compare it like more apples to apples?
For me, I'm always going to test new content, whether it lands or not. Sometimes there's content like these case studies that have performed well. Sometimes I'll post them and they don't perform the way that I would expect them to. I had a post today on Repo that, a week ago I made a very similar style post that got 60,000 impressions, and right now I'm at 3,000. So, not very similar type of content, but sometimes there's like creative fatigue in marketing of, if you show some people the same type of content, maybe they get a little bored of it. And, that's why, you know, s- sprinkled in there, I'm testing like carousels and different pieces of content. And like, same is true for marketing an indie game or any game. It's at a certain point, there's an inflection point of the audience is seeing that creative, that type of creative. So they may switch it off or might not resonate with it. So, in the world of marketing, you want to constantly be testing and experimenting with new content and messaging always.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. And I guess from an indie dev who's already feeling overwhelmed, like I have a million platforms that I'm trying to maintain and manage, why would someone want to use LinkedIn from more of like an indie dev promotion area of their own game, if they should at all?
Well, you consider the platform as more B2B, it's more for business. And so, if you're a studio and your goals are, I want to expand the network, I want to be seen by investors and publishers, and I want to maybe attract talent, or there's communities like the indie game community, the group on LinkedIn. Maybe I want feedback from other developers. Maybe I want to show off a prototype or some art or a trailer and get some feedback. Like, I think in that sense, there can be a lot of value. And if you're trying to do any type of business development relationships, there's platforms out there, some startups that may give you more favorable placement for your game. They may negotiate and work better deals for you. It can unlock doors on the business development side. But, if you're going to use LinkedIn, like think of it that way. It's for business development, it's B2B, not necessarily the best place for getting players into your game.
Getting wish lists in
at
that, and
scale.
even yeah, because like even well, you had sent before, you're making posts that are getting 60,000 impressions, 30,000 impressions, whatever it all is. I'm sure there is a world where some of those impressions could relay back into wish lists and sales for your game. Or again, is Twitter, Reddit still better to be spending time with?
It just depends on the type of game that you have because every game has a different type of player, and that type of player usually lives in different places. So, for example, hardcore RPG players may be more active on Reddit. Cozy gamers may be more active in Facebook groups. Believe it or not, there's some Facebook groups that are really active for cozy gamers because you have the demographics different. The type of person that's a cozy gamer is probably not going to be as much in Reddit, even though there is a subreddit that exists for cozy gamers that is quite popular. Um, but it's, you know, when it comes to optimization of like where should you spend your time, you should focus on the channels that where your audience lives. And sometimes it's not feasible to be active in 10 different social media platforms. Maybe you need to single it out or identify like the top one or two different channels that you can be really good at and really invest your time into rather than trying to be like the spray and pray approach of, well, I'm just going to be everywhere and hope that something works.
All right, perfect. And do you think is there any kind of untapped opportunity for an indie dev on LinkedIn right now? Like I know Joe Henson. I'm not too sure if you are connected with him or not. He is part of the Hypercharge team, and I know he's done a fantastic job with using LinkedIn as a main marketing tool for Hypercharge. But again, just more so in general, besides just the B2B side of it or trying to get a publisher deal, anything that LinkedIn you could see being really helpful.
I think as far as like again, like from a B2C standpoint, sure, you can get players if you communicate on LinkedIn. Like
Mm-hmm.
sure, you can drive people into different platforms using LinkedIn. But like, once again, like the audiences may not be the same, right? Like
Yeah,
you gotta
yeah,
understand like the people that are really active on LinkedIn, they fit a certain demographic typically,
yeah.
right? Like they're college educated, they make X amount of income, they live in different areas, they come from different industries, and like your algorithm, by the way, like you may only the content that you make may only attract a certain type of audience. Like I had to work for the algorithm to really find the audience for me. And now it's online, but there's work that goes into it. Like, so there is value to LinkedIn, and certainly like some people use it, but I think where it needs to start is the strategy and the research. Like, where's the audience going to be? What message is going to resonate with them? Where should I be allocating my time? Because LinkedIn is work. Any social media channels work. So you want to make sure that you're getting the right return on investment, even if you're not spending financially. You are spending your time.
Gotcha. Okay, so then let's just say for the sake of this conversation, if either I feel like LinkedIn would be great for two buckets. Bucket number one is going to be I'm a game developer who's actually actively looking to be hired, right? I think LinkedIn's a great spot for that, and you can kind of post stories and talk about that, and that's a way of being more engaging than just your standard CV. And then the other side of it is like I'm a solo dev who is maybe looking for publisher support or looking to get my game seen by people who can really help me get it to the next level. Whether it's individuals like you who create them or help with the marketing side, or there's I'm sure there's quite a few publishers who are on the platform who are using it to network with one another as well as finding their next game. Is that a safe assumption to kind of continue forward on the conversation?
I'd say so, yeah. And I didn't really touch on like if you're just looking for a job type of situation. I spend so much time talking to founders and studio heads that I don't think as much of like, oh yeah, like people use it for a job. But I think in either case, more so than just posting content, it's engaging with other people naturally. And
Yeah.
so, for example, like you wouldn't want to go find somebody who's a decision maker at a publishing group or a hiring manager and just message them cold and be like, "Will you hire me? Or do you have any places? Do you have any openings that you know of?" For example, rather it's relationship building in a natural way. Like if there is somebody that you're wanting to engage with, Well, follow them, but like look at their content. What have they been posting? Look at them. Are they in the news? Like, have they, and if they specifically haven't been in the news, has their company been in the news? Like, what can you bring to the table that's relevant to them? Like, for example, you could find somebody, a hiring manager. Hey, I saw your company just closed a round, or you just announced a game. I think that's really cool. Would love to stay in touch, right? Um, or, like 5 minute informational, just want to chat. You're not asking for anything, but you're personalizing the message in the sense that you've done a bit of homework. You're reaching out with not a standard copy paste that you're sending to everybody else, something that's really relevant and personal to them. And then like just engaging naturally with, if they are posting, like, leaving thoughtful comments, like engaging with them just naturally. Like, I think that's just building any type of relationship. If it's one way, like if I just met you and, I say, hey, I want something from you, doesn't go as far as like, really nice to meet you. I've heard so much about you. Like, can you please tell me more? I want to learn more. It's relationship building versus a transactional relationship.
Absolutely. And again, I know like for some people it's not, it doesn't come as natural, right, as others who are maybe, a little bit more extroverted, people who work in a particular client facing field maybe. So from just more so tips to the audience, or tips to those who do find it a little bit more difficult, do you recommend following someone first before you're going and connecting with them, and kind of when would be a time that you would move from a follow or a comment over into an actual connection?
I just think it should be organic, right? Like, yeah, sure, follow them. And if you see them post and it's something that resonates with you, then leave a comment that is, relevant to that just naturally. And I
Hmm.
understand that may be challenging for people that are more introverted, and that's not cut out for everybody. So it's, I don't want to blanket say, oh yeah, just do XYZ and it's
Yeah.
that easy, right? Like sometimes you may go the other approach where you're posting about, your work or the work that you've done. There's different ways to approach it where you don't, again, like if you're not naturally inclined to just go up and shake somebody's hand, that, can be a little more catered to where you are. But the takeaway should be do it in a way that's natural and organic for yourself. If you're not,
Hmm.
then people will read that. People will connect more if you're honest. And you can even say like, "Hey, I'm not a really outgoing person. I'm a little nervous or shy, but I really just want to talk." Like, people
Yeah.
understand that. Like, I think most people are reasonable.
Yeah. Okay, I can definitely get behind that. And one thing I have personally experienced is exactly that. How what's the best way of putting it? Just how willing people are to help others, right? And again, I sent you a message, and I know I've commented on some of your great posts. But it was that, right? Like you didn't have to spend time out of your day to come chat with me. But I think just as a listener, and kind of giving people that confidence to be able to start with a comment, and then just make it natural, and follow along on, be excited for other people's journeys, I think is a really great way of just naturally building that communication, and that kind of friendship, if you will.
Of course, yeah.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying the conversation, but I wanted to take a quick second just to tell you about today's sponsor, me. Well, actually, more specifically, the 7-day marketing foundations challenge that I have put together. So, if you've gotten this far in the podcast, then I know that you are serious about becoming an indiepreneur and building a strong marketing foundation around your game. So, I have a challenge for you. Give me 20 minutes a day for the next 7 days, and I will give you a marketing system that actually works. Each day builds upon the last, and throughout the 7 days, we're going to be doing things like defining your ideal player, crafting a killer pitch, optimizing your Steam page, and building an outreach list, as well as sending some emails with some proven and provided templates. Look, there's no overwhelm, just small daily wins that will compound into real results. So if you want to learn more, check out the link below in the description, and I cannot wait to cheer you on. Besides that, have a great rest of your day, and let's get back to the episode. Is there something to being a thought leader for an indie dev? And again, I know yours is a little different. Like you are a thought leader, but you're working to help indie devs with the marketing side of things, and like it's kind of, not to say it's your job, but a big part of your job is to prove that you are able to do this. But for someone who's building a game, is there still value for them to become a thought leader in cozy games, or a thought leader in kind of a specific element of what they're trying to build, even if it's not 100% focused on, hey, wishlist my game?
Yeah, it's the marketing funnel, right? So you have the top of funnel, you have middle of funnel, you got the bottom of the funnel, right? And so that that type of content where you're doing a mixture of bottom of funnel, which would be more self-promotional, wish list my game. First top of funnel is more awareness about the game, like look at my cool trailer. Middle of funnel would be, like the type of engagement or about like more detail about the game. So you kind of bring them from awareness to information, like down to decision making. Um, and as far as thought leader, like it's weird, like when I think about that, because I never like started out, oh, I'm gonna be an influencer or a thought leader, and I still don't. It's not really the goal for me, but I think for me, and I think what's also true for other, developers or studios is just sharing the story of like who I am and why I'm doing this and like the impact that I think can make, like totally resonates with people and gets them interested. And I think sharing versus not sharing, you get your name out there and you become more visible. Um, and visible with that type of content too. So it's not all like, oh, me, look at me and how awesome I am and how awesome Skilltree is. It's actually a lot of what I do is shining the light on what other people do, right? On other type of content that I see is great. And it's a lot more natural. And again, like just to close the loop on the studio thing, I think sharing your own journey as a developer, whether you're a studio head or developer, like people resonate with that. I've met some studios with really fascinating backgrounds that, I feel that they should share more of that, right? Like they should talk more about their journey because it humanizes them and makes people more inclined, not just to wish list your game, but to talk about your game. Like, gosh, like I know this studio that I was a husband and wife. They quit their job. They went all in to make this zombie VR game. It was super fun, and like I wish more people would play it. And like they sacrificed and did all this stuff, and the mom and pa like business and game studio, they made it, and that's a real natural story that people connect with. I'm one of our studios is in Ukraine. Their marketing, their community manager literally spent a month and a half in the hospital from a bombing, and when he got out he immediately went back to work on community management for their game. And it's just like, and I talked to them and they're like they're so chill about it, but I'm like, you guys, like this is really, you
It's
gotta
gold.
tell this story, like this is,
Yeah.
people care about this stuff, like
And from your perspective on this, on that side of the equation, telling their own story, why aren't they telling it? Is it more so like, oh, people don't like, this doesn't have anything to do with my game? Like what's kind of some of the pushback that you're getting as to why they're not?
they don't want to make it the game about that, or they don't want to focus on that, which is fair.
Yeah.
um there's other ways to approach it, and sometimes they don't want to talk about themselves. Sometimes it doesn't feel natural to them. Other times they don't have the time to commit to doing all that because it is work. Like being active on social media, it's work. It's a time
Yeah.
commitment to correctly do it right. I have to allocate time for it. I have to spend time
Definitely.
for it. And to be effective, that's what you got to do. So it's time commitment, it's feeling maybe not supernatural, or you don't know the story to tell, or you don't know how you should be communicating it. And a lot of devs, man, they're great at making a game, but like promoting the game, not always, right?
Yeah.
Like that may not come natural to them.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think it's a big reason personally why freaking cool indies exist. I'm sure it's a big reason why Skilltree exists and why all your posts exist. Like, helping shining that light and helping people succeed in this business and marketing side that's really, really important to getting it across the board. I know I've had many conversations with indie devs, and one always sticks out to me where I was asking him, okay, well, like, tell me more about your overall strategy. And he's like, oh, I'm going to make the game, and then IGN's going to cover it. and like that was his like strategy, and I was like, okay, well, how are you going to do that? Are you going, and again, I definitely saw a big disconnect, and I think being able to help close that is really really important and really impactful. So, John, can you tell me a little bit more then about your content creation side of it, right? How are you finding games to cover when you are finding it? How are you doing your research? How are you actually kind of picking, all right, this is the type of post that I'm going to be putting together for this type of game, right? Whether it's a case study, whether it's kind of, pros and cons, whatever the different posts are. Is there, do you have a formula that you're using to try and, let's test out some different things?
Yeah, I have tested out different types of content. It all started with the strategy and the research of like that I kind of
Mhm.
said earlier in this call of, what are the challenges that indies have? What's the gaps? Like how where do they need help with? What are their budgets at with marketing? Like what do we do there? So, I have a pretty good sense now of like the type of things that resonate with them. And I'm still learning and testing. But as far as like coming up with the content, I have a pretty good sense now of like and I test different days, but I have a pretty good sense of like in a given week, that different that funnel I told you about, like top of funnel, middle funnel, bottom of
Yep.
funnel. And I try to add in like personal stories of my own journey and why I'm doing Skilltree. And then as far as like the research goes, well, um, I'm using LLMs. I use deep
Hmm.
research LLMs,
Cool.
and I do it to identify case studies and what they've done. I've used it to come up with ideas of what are the problems indies are facing today, and I've come up with basically a framework for myself where I have a bunch of content ideas that I'll think of, or I'll pull research on to expand on those ideas and add more context. Like, um, there's a big complaint on LinkedIn and other social media, like AI slop and all that stuff taking over. And it's totally justified and fair. But what I found was really helpful was not just having ChatGPT write a post for me. It's like, well, I would have an idea of the type of post based off of all of my research. And in order to get context and background on that, I pull deep research to find out, like, okay, well, how did Balatro become Balatro? What was the journey, right? And what would take somebody a really long time in the past to like go through all the articles that have been posted and the GDC talks that have happened and all the information that's publicly available and like pulling that into a centralized place would take a lot of time. But now with tools that are available, it's like, oh, I have prompts that I can use, and I'll use multiple LLMs to pull that information, and I'll fact check within the LLMs. I'll verify, like, okay, like if this doesn't seem right to me, like where did this information come from? If I need to modify the statement or whatever, I will. But um, really, that's it. There's no like hidden secret behind it. It's just I'm using the tools that are available to pull that research, and it serves a couple functions in so much that it's great content that not only educates the following and the people that are engaging with the content, it educates me. And it lets me know, well, okay, here are like the key lessons that I can take away because I've had this great background where we publish games on every platform at AAA. Indies is a different nut to crack. It's a different challenge of like how do you, without the massive budgets that and overhead and marketing spend that a big publisher will have, how can you break through in today's industry when you have a game? And well, there are multiple ways, and let's learn and figure out what other studios are doing out there to be successful, and how can we translate that to your game? How can we make that work for your game? And I frankly think that while there's some negative sentiment around the use of AI, which I get, in so much that we pulled it out of all of our messaging, It's not on our website. You don't see the letters A and I put together in anything that we communicate now, because marketing in and of itself is very can be a black box and confusing to developers. And when you layer AI onto that, then the perception was, well, you're just replacing, you're putting out AI slop. I don't want AI slop to represent my game. Like, no, that's not what we're doing. We have very real talented artists in Skilltree marketing that help us out. But the theory is, guys, like, this will level the playing field for you if you use it right. And it's what's going to help you be competitive in a very competitive marketplace right now.
Are you, I'm guessing when you're working with your clients, are you using AI to help even just with idea generation, or, making sure that you can accurately talk through your unique selling points, things along those lines?
All the above,
Yeah.
all the above. And we disclose that to our clients. They
Hmm.
know how we use it and why, and they understand. Um, what would take a lot of people and a lot of time to put together a strategy can now be done in a much shorter time. And people will say, well, how do you know that that's going to work? How do you know it's going to work? Isn't there hallucination, and aren't there challenges around that? Well, it's why we're coupling our experience. Our team has published over 100 games on every platform. We've been there, we've done that. And we're just using it as a tool in the same way some developers use AI and LLMs to help them with coding, or help in their workflows. We're using it to not replace, but to augment the work that we do. And what it translates to for indies is, well, instead of you needing at WB Publishing, there were 100 plus employees just in the publishing group. And instead of having to bankroll that, you can now do that with a much leaner team, and you can do it a lot faster. And the reason that it works is, well, I was testing it at WB, um, and it worked. And we have done it for our early clients, and it's worked. And the whole LinkedIn strategy, well, that was LLMs, and that now I'm in the top 1% of the game industry on LinkedIn. Yeah, I went from zero to the top 1% in a matter of 3 months. Um, that's how long it took, from an unknown to literally one of the top voices in the game industry right now. And that same methodology can be applied to games if they're willing to experiment. We can come up with positioning statements. We can come up with media plans, how to allocate your ad budget. We can come up with creative concepting, personalized creatives, all that stuff. All the pre-production work that would take a significant amount of time can be done on a much shorter timeline with far less resources. And again, we have very real artists that make the art. We have very real marketing people that oversee the copy and the messaging and positioning, but we can do it for a lot less.
Interesting. And I personally, I'm in the same boat as you. Again, I think taking things like art is something where is like that is where I personally draw my line, but being able to actually utilize it to brainstorm, I find is incredibly helpful. Going and finding great templates online of people who are successfully doing various frameworks, and hey, can you help to add it into this area here, just to get clear on what is it that we want to do before actioning. So I'm right there with you, John. But back to the LinkedIn side of things. I guess again, before we kind of wrap things up here, is there any other areas of LinkedIn that you would really want to pitch for an indie dev, or again, get them excited about using the platform? Because I personally think LinkedIn does a phenomenal job of connection, and not just like, hey, I need a job, but if I like something, it does a really good job of spreading that to another layer of people, and then another layer. And I think that's how you really start getting your virality with it. So, any other kind of closing thoughts on the LinkedIn portion of using it as a game dev?
Start with a strategy and a plan.
Cool.
Stick to the plan even when it doesn't work. That if a post doesn't land, if the metrics are not at the level that you want them to be, that is not failure. It's not failure. It's simply a data point.
Yeah.
And so you only fail whenever you give up and stop. And so consistency, having a plan, um, that's going to drive results for you with whatever they are.
Awesome, John. Well, one thing that I like to do with every single one of my guests is that I want to make sure that here at Freaking Cool Indies, we are continuing to shout other games and other developers from the rooftop. And I ask all of my guests to highlight a game either that they're currently playing or just something that one game that they've loved that they want to highlight from the indie game scene. So, John, is there any games or developers or studios that you want to really kind of call out right now?
The first one I want to shout out is our very first client, Five Finger Studios. They have a game called The Living Remain. It's on Meta, it's on Steam, it's a VR game. It's got very positive reviews on both platforms. Fans really love it. It's a really fun game that is currently I think it's on sale still. Um, Really really fun husband and wife duo. They went all in on making this game. It's definitely worth checking out. The other one is Marauder Tech has a game called Price of Glory. This studio, it is a studio with 40 employees, totally bankrolled by the owner, CEO, completely paying for everything, all the salaries and everything on his own. Former NFL player, went out to become an entrepreneur, was successful in some other industries, and decided, for whatever reason, to get into games. Um, and we're launching a user acquisition test next week. It's a strategy game. Think like chess meets League of Legends. It looks like Civilization. Their lead designer came from Firaxis and worked on Civilization. Their executive producer, Jeremy, worked on Marvel Strike Force. So they have a really solid team behind it. Um, and the cool hook is you can play the game and it's skill based only. There's no RNG, and you can win real cash money in tournaments. So
Wicked.
you can play, yeah, you can play the game, and if you're good enough, you can win, and you can earn the currency just from playing the game, and watching like in-game ads. So you could technically go in, get really good at the game, put no money into it, and make money. Um, so it's really unique. It's really interesting. It's not gambling. I have to caveat, right? There's no random stuff. It's all my mind versus yours, and it's a really fun game at its core. If you don't get involved in any of the money stuff, you just want to play for fun.
Yeah.
It's actually a whole lot of fun. So those are the two games I'm gonna plug right now. Our first two clients, um, that I cherish very much.
I love it. I love it. And lastly, tell us more about Skilltree Marketing. What is it that you guys do? For the audience listening who is looking for some help with the marketing side, how can you guys kind of help out?
We always start with the research. We do audit and discovery and research. And from that, we put together a go to market strategy plan with a forecast. We have a low, medium, high forecast of what to expect as far as like wish list and revenue for your title. So in the industry, especially in the indie space, that's a key element that studios lack. They look at marketing as like a checklist of like you said, like, oh, I'm gonna get IGN to cover us, and that's it. That'll be my marketing strategy. Or I'm gonna use Keymailer, and I'm gonna go with influencers, and that's my marketing strategy, right? But what we do is we say, well, that's just one of many things that you need to consider, and how do you allocate your budget? What we specialize in is go to market strategy, creative. We can make trailers, we can make assets, all sorts of stuff. We can do user acquisition, that's paid campaigns that we can run for you. We can do influencer marketing. We partner with people on PR and social media side, so we have trusted partners we work with, and we can do cross promotion. That's great if you have like multiple titles and you're trying to drive extra incremental revenue. So, technically we can manage like end to end the whole marketing campaign for you, multiple campaigns or the product life cycle. We can pull in parts as needed, but like our core area that we're really, really good at is the strategy, the execution. We can handle the execution, the creative, and user acquisition.
Awesome. And where can the people find you?
Skilltreemarketing.gg.
Awesome. And of course, LinkedIn, which everything will be in the description below. I think it's a fairly easy pass off for this episode topic, and obviously following along with your amazing LinkedIn and all of the posts and that you have been doing as well as coming. Because I have to say, John, like I'm on LinkedIn fairly often, but every single time I open up and I pull up like the little message, this and that, you always have a green dot. And it's like, both like, A, you need a vacation soon, my friend, but also it's like, it's really wicked to see how hard you are working on this entire project. And again, it's, I do want to give kudos to that, because you are one of the hardest working people that I have seen on both LinkedIn and just getting this whole thing off the ground. So yeah, I make sure that everything will be posted below if you want to get in touch with John, or if you want to just follow along on his adventure.
Thank you so much, Mike. Really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Awesome, dude. Well, again, John, thank you very much to all of our audience listeners. We'll see you next week. And with that, continue to be a freaking cool indie. And John, congratulations, sir. Well, you already were before, but hey, you are officially a freaking cool indie. So with that, everybody, have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you soon.